Welcome, Garland. Always a delight, not a pleasure, a delight to have you on the show. Let's start with that point. Neither of us are supporters of Donald Trump. I don't think that's a secret to anyone on either side of the pond. How did it come to pass that Donald Trump, with Henry Kissinger providing the intellectual heavyweight ballast, are the only people in America, or here for that matter, talking sense about the need to stop this war before it goes nuclear?
I think one of the things that has happened recently is Joe Biden was speaking at a fundraiser in New York, and he invoked the specter of nuclear war, and in particular he used the word nuclear Armageddon. I think that the neocons had planned on arguing that we were in danger of a nuclear war so that they could get people more frightened and more easy to control. But I think it had the opposite effect, particularly amongst the wealthy and powerful who they want to stick around a while and enjoy their wealth and power. Consequentially, we've seen a number of very powerful people come out and say, whoa, let's put the brakes on, and perhaps we need to talk this thing down. And Donald Trump, specifically now, is calling for immediate diplomacy to end the Ukraine conflict. I think that's going to have a dramatic effect, particularly because he has so much power and such a strong following in the Republican Party. It's going to make it more difficult for the neocon Republicans to move forward, allied with the Biden neocons.
Yes, one would have thought so, but it has come to something where it's labelled far right to be trying to stop a nuclear war. Once upon a time, that was the loony left's job.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But I think what has happened is this is gone, and particularly, as I said, it's very important that Joe Biden did this and that the neocons lately have been pushing this nuclear war trope. Clearly, you can see that it was a plan because it's everywhere in the news and it's being discussed everywhere. And I think it was really part of their plan. They saw the support dissolving, and they felt this was going to help. And instead, they scared the bejesus out of Americans, and now people are going in the opposite direction. And I also think it's going to have a really bad effect on them, because as people call, particularly people of note, Donald Trump, Jeffrey Sachs, Elon Musk, start calling for a negotiated end, it will reveal the truth about the neocons, that they aren't honest players here, that they don't want an end, and that this is not about what they're saying about. They really want to weaken Russia, that they're really playing a game here, and they're not being honest with the American people. So they don't want a negotiated end, and that's going to make it more difficult for the neocons to hide their malicious intentions, shall we say.
That's a very shrewd observation, as always, from you. Trump, therefore, you're saying, is not actually leading this. He's responding to what is a rising tide. I mentioned Mearsheimer earlier, but Sachs is a much more contemporary and centrist figure in American academia. And his calls this week were so powerful and so damaging to the Biden administration. And then Elon Musk, who's been flying the Starlink satellites that the Ukrainian gunners were using for targeting, he turns in a dramatic 180 So in a way, this is not isolated. This is not Donald Trump just out there. This is something that is happening across the board, center right maybe, but across that center right board.
Well, let's never underestimate Donald Trump's political inclinations, his political abilities. I think Donald Trump was probably somewhat, opposed to this from the beginning. He's continually saying, if I was in charge, this wouldn't have happened. And I think Donald Trump might have waited a while. He had, kind of made some references that he wasn't happy that this wouldn't have happened under him. But I think he was waiting for the political cover. And I think someone like a Sachs, who's considered on the left, someone like an Elon Musk, who's considered somewhat somewhat of an independent, maybe a bit of a libertarian. They gave Donald Trump the cover that he needed. They're significant characters of note to come out strong. And I think that's going to be it's going to make it difficult for the Republican Party, because how do the neocon Republicans respond? How do they now? Do the neocon Republicans push back against their base and side with Joe Biden? So this is a huge move by Donald Trump in the pressure that it's going to create within the Republican Party.
Now, Garland, I have very good eyesight. Don't let the glasses fool you. There's a hat behind you which says Nixon 2024. Are you running for office, Congressman?
If what is it? If nominated, I will not accept. And if the old General Sherman story. But no, I got that for fun. I put it back there just to kind of create a little bit buzz. There are circumstances that I would consider it, yes, but at this point, certainly not. You never know.
Well, I think you should consider it. You'd be truly outstanding. Let's talk about elections, though. How's it shaping up for the midterm elections? What's your educated guess a month out?
Well, I think the black swan event, as it were, is going to be gas prices. I think that there are two things I would keep an eye on. Number one, gas prices. If they continue to jack up, it's not going to work out well for the Democrats. I also want to keep an eye on this Donald Trump Ukraine stuff, because the fact of the matter is this: the polls show that more and more Americans are concerned with this war, and the numbers are dramatically moving in the direction of those who want to negotiate it in. So I think if Donald Trump really starts to grab this thing and run with it, that could have a dramatic effect on the Democrats. So gas prices, certainly, the issue of the Ukraine war, I think, are very big. As I see it right now, I think the Democrats take a pretty nasty beating, and then we're going to be looking. Then afterwards, I think this is important. After the election, in all likelihood, it appears like the Russians are going to have their feet set, as it were, with their new reserves. Joe Biden's going to be sitting there reeling from the beating that he took in the midterms, with a lame duck Democratic majority, and dealing with, in all likelihood, the Russians making some kind of offense. So, I'm interested in it. I don't think the Democrats do well. The question is, do they lose a little, or do they get annihilated? Right now, with what's happening with gas prices, I'm going to lead towards a destruction of biblical proportions for the Democratic Party.
So sad, too bad, never mind, as we say in Glasgow. But the biblical annihilation, which would be a cause of great celebration in my household, I must confess, will then leave the Republican Party in control of the Congress and its agenda. Joe Biden, to call him a lame duck is an insult to lame ducks. I mean, this is a dead duck presidency. Certainly dead from the shoulders up. The likelihood of criminal charges, of impeachment and so on, reverse ferreting by the Republicans must be very high. And the plump target of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's role, nefarious role, I'll go so far to say, in Ukraine when he was the vice president to Barack Obama, this will all hove into view for political pay-per-view television, don't you think?
Absolutely. But I also think that Joe Biden better be looking over both shoulders. There are now some signs that the Democratic Party and his own support may be turning on him. Interestingly enough, there is a show called Saturday Night Live that comes on every Saturday night, and it's known, it's the heart of liberalism in New York, and they, attack Trump every week, and Joe Biden's wonderful. Well, they did a show this week where they made jest of Joe Biden's, mental lapses, shall we say. They joked about how bad things are in America. That certainly is a bad sign for Joe Biden. Those people are at the vanguard of liberal philosophy and politics in America. I think that if the midterm is as bad as we suspected that it will be, that the Democratic Party will be looking for a way to jettison Joe Biden. I also think that Hunter Biden may be a path to that, in that they, argue, look, you've got to leave. They're about to charge Hunter. They're going to investigate you and Hunter. You're going to bring the party down. Why don't you walk out the door? The problem they have is, though, they have Kamala Harris, and let's face it, she's about as bright as a wet match in a dark cave. So they don't have a lot of ways out. But I think they're going to be looking to ditch Joe Biden after the midterms.
Kamala Harris is one problem, but there is another one. Joe Biden cannot walk out the door. First of all, he can't walk, and secondly, he can't find the door.
Yeah, well, yes, it's you're watching that. It's getting embarrassing. Anytime Saturday Night Live, these are people that literally did Christmas carols to Mueller. They sung "We Wish You a Mueller Christmas," and they're the worst liberals, and they're making jest of Joe Biden's mental lapses. The guy just wanders around the stage aimlessly for no apparent reason, night after night. They can't figure out how to get him going in the right direction. It's getting embarrassing for the party. And I think once they really get wiped out in November, they don't have to admit that it's their policies. They don't have to admit that it's neoliberalism and that it's Ukraine. They can say, we just had a bad guy here. And now that we've cleaned him up, the party will turn right around and Kamala Harris will take us in the right direction. If she can figure out if she can figure out which is North Korea and which is South Korea and things of that nature.
I'd forgotten about that one. Garland Nixon, as always, thanks very much for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. What a superstar that man is.